Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Reverend Lydia Ferrante Roseberry, the minister of this congregation. What a week we've had. It is so good to be together, and once again, I'm grieving not being able to be in each other's physical company during such a trying time for our nation. I feel like I say that just about every week lately. As you may have seen, I've put my previously planned service, Why Is There Something Instead of Nothing, on hold. This service was bought by Jeff Van Cleve at the auction. And I appreciate Jeff's graciousness and humor when he told me, no problem about putting it on hold. It's a question that's been around for thousands of years. It can wait a few months. So thank you, Jeff, for your graciousness. I'm joined today by a team of folks who are also willing to drop the creative planning we'd already done and rearrange this service with me. I want to thank intern minister Lisa Moore, service associate Linda Thornton, and our music director Tad Koryeth in particular. Today's music that we're doing now is by Tad and Emily Jaworski Koryeth. Our own One Voice, as well as other local UU musicians. And as always, I'm grateful for our tech ushers, Bill Beachley, Scott Nelson, who is on board today, and Don Price. They help things run so smoothly. And most important, the people to mention are all of you. For together, we remind each other of the power of love, even in times of extreme hate. As we join together today, we acknowledge that our community is located on the lands once stewarded by the Arapaho, the Ute, the Sioux, and the Cheyenne people. Our congregation honors Indigenous legacy and respects the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional homelands through our connections with Right Relations Boulder. As I say our welcome words today, I invite you to shift into gallery mode if you haven't already done so, and scroll through the screen so you can see who is among us today. You are all welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways that you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways you make your living and the places you are from, you are welcome here. Christian, pagan, humanist, Jew, Buddhist, Muslim, mystic, Unitarian Universalist, with all of the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. And no matter how long you've been away, nor how soon you return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart today or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today. So it is the beginning of the year, and I do have a lot of announcements for this vibrant congregation this morning. First of all, I want to announce that this week is the 5th anniversary of Tad Koryeth's work with us at the fellowship. So I'm going to ask you to unmute for a second and show Tad a little bit of love, if you would. You can unmute. We'll just give him a hoot and holler. Hey, Tad, thank you. Tad, you have just brought so much joy and love and beauty to this congregation. I cannot thank you enough, and especially for your work figuring out and doing it, how to be a music director in. I just got muted for some reason, but I'm now unmuted. So I just want what you may not have heard was me profusely thanking Tad, and especially during this time, how he has reworked his job so that he still provides us beautiful music. So after this service today, we'll have a couple breakout rooms. One is for a roots class. I'll be leading that for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about Unitarianism and Universalism. There's a post-service discussion with Linda and Lisa today. Then this Thursday evening from 6 to 7:30, our consultant, Julica Herman de la Fuente, will be back for her second of 2 interactive workshops on inclusivity and anti-racism within our BVUUF community. If you are not able to come to the first one, but we're not able to come to the first one, but would like to attend on Thursday, we ask that you watch the video of the first one. The link for the information to register is going in the chat, and then if you do register, we'll send you out the video. We'll get that out to everybody as well. I'm also adding a link to the variety of opportunities for connections and education with the Black community during this coming Martin Luther King Day weekend. I hope you take full advantage of all the opportunities we'll have. Beth, the membership class is on January 23rd, Saturday morning from 9 to 11:30. It's led by me and other lay leaders. It's an excellent opportunity to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, our fellowship, and just to connect with others. There's no obligation to become a member by coming to the class. And if you'd like to register, the link is going in the chat. And finally, I want to let you know that the Board of Trustees has approved a sabbatical for me that begins in the beginning of March. I'm due for this sabbatical, and it's been a few years of waiting for the right time, given the building project and the pandemic and the political situation. So I have to say, as this is approaching, it feels bittersweet for me to be gone from you for a few months. But I'm also clear that you will do fine. And if it's anything like the last sabbatical I was on, the time will fly by for both of us. I want to invite Clara Kelly, who's the co-chair of the sabbatical team, to share a few words as well. Clara's, you're muted.
Thank you. I couldn't unmute myself at first. After a roller coaster of a building project followed by such a stressful and challenging year, we as the sabbatical committee feel so glad to be able to send Lydia on this much needed and well-deserved sabbatical this spring. We send her in the certainty that taking the time to reconnect to her inspiration and creativity will return her to us with even more joy and readiness to take on the delights and challenges of 2021 and beyond. We're also excited to enjoy the offerings of Lisa Moore, our ministerial intern in this season. Reverend Lydia will be away from 1st through August 10th. Oh, and this is us. This is your sabbatical team. Pictured here is we are busy making plans to support the fellowship in her absence. You guys will hear a lot more about this in your inbox this afternoon and in the coming weeks.
If you are new here, we're glad that you found us and hope that even in this virtual community, you can experience the warmth and the love and the power of this congregation. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. If you want to get better connected, please see the chat window for the link to our first-time visitors page, or email your information to our office manager, Carol, and her email is in the chat window as well. And do be sure to check the chat window. Do be sure to check our fellowship calendar and connections weekly for all the opportunities we have to stay connected. And finally, if anyone who's new here would like to introduce yourself in the chat, please do, because we love to know who is among us. All are invited to stay for virtual coffee hour after the service or join in one of the other offerings I just spoke about. And now, if you have a chalice at home, you can light it with me as I light our fellowship chalice. So we know where all our chalices are. Please write in the chat, chalice lit in, and then the name of your town. And you can say the words along with me as I light our chalice. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And now I'll sing our bowl again, inviting it to draw you deeper into the present moment and to this, our beloved community.
My, oh my, we must have got it wrong. Falling skies, storm is coming strong. No one is getting out of this unscathed. Who could be ready for these warring games? My, oh my, we must have got it wrong. The world is unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling, unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. Oh, 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 oh. My, oh my, we're in the final act. Can't hide the tide. The sea is turning black. No one is coming out of the unscathed. Who could be ready for these warring games? My, oh my, we must have got it wrong. The world is unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling, unraveling, unraveling. Such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. Oh, oh, such a mad, mad reckoning. The world's unraveling. That's it.
For our opening words, we have Bahatva by Aurora Levins Morales. Aurora Levins Morales is a self-described disabled and chronically ill, community-supported writer, historian, artist, and activist. The Hebrew word Bahatva is the first word in the Shema, Hebrew prayers traditionally recited each day in the morning and evening. Mahatma means, and you shall love. Morales wrote this poem in 2016. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders, teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep, here in the cruel shadow of empire. Another world is possible. Thus spoke the prophet, wrote Dalton, Salvadorian community activist and poet, assassinated in 1975. Altogether, they have more death than we, but altogether, we have more life than they. There is more bloody death in their hands than we could ever wield, unless we lay down our souls to become them, and then we will lose everything. So instead, imagine winning. This is your sacred task. This is your power. Imagine every detail of winning, the exact smell of the summer streets in which no one has been shot, the muscles you have never unclenched from worry, gone soft as a newborn skin, the sparkling taste of food when we know that no one on earth is hungry, that the beggars are fed, that the old man under the bridge and the woman wrapping herself in thin sheets in the back seat of a car, and the children who suck on stones, nest under a flock of roofs that keep multiplying their shelter. Lean with all your being towards that day, when the poor of the world shake down a rain of good fortune out of the heavy clouds, and justice rolls down like waters. Defend the world in which we win as if it were your child. It is your child. Defend it as if it were your lover. It is your lover. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope. Then imagine more. Imagine rape is unimaginable. Imagine war is scarcely a credible rumor, that the crimes of our age, the grotesque inhumanities of greed, the sheer and astounding shamelessness of it, the vast fortunes made by stealing lives, the horrible normalcy it came to have, is unimaginable to our heirs, the generations of the free. Don't waver. Don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry drinking gourd over the grim fog of exhaustion, and keep walking. Hold hands, share water, keep imagining, so that we and the children of our children's children may live.
One seed is all it takes to grow a forest. One candle can light a dark room. One voice is enough, speaking words of love. Each moment becomes what we choose. Do you want a new world? A world that works for everyone? Open your heart and let it be. We can become the new world. Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me to be anew. Our dreams light the path for us to walk on. Our songs help our spirits align. And each little child helps remind us why we not only might, we must thrive. Do you want a new world? A world that works for everyone? Open your life and let it be. We can become the new world. Mother Earth beneath the sky. She's waiting for you and for me to be a new world. With just this thought, it has begun. Now don't you wanna see a new world? In Mother Earth beneath the gray sky, counting on you and me to be a new world. Be the new world.
Excuse me. The reflection today is a passage by Anne Lamott from Plan B, Further Thought on Faith. I headed out for church one Sunday filled with my usual mix of joy and profound anxiety about life. But church is my favorite place on earth, after the couch in my living room. In church, we don't live from our minds, we live in community, which is to say, in shared loss and hope, singing, hanging out together. We don't sit huddled together thinking. The story begins one Sunday morning before church. It was overcast and cold. I started out cleaning drawers for no particular reason except that I had a half an hour until I had to leave for church. In the back of one drawer, I found a horribly tangled gold chain. I took it outside and sat down on the front step in the cool morning and tugged on it. I used to love to untangle chains as a child, and I never gave up. Now, though, after a few minutes on the front step, I went inside and put the chain back in the drawer and sat down to read the paper. This was a big mistake. Lately, our pastor had been urging us to act more like Martin Luther King Jr., which I feel gives an unfair advantage to the more decent and humane people. The rage returned in me. I've known for years that resentments don't hurt the people we resent, but they do hurt and even sometimes kill us. I'd been asking myself, Am I willing to try to give up this bit of hatred? Yeah, finally, theoretically. And that was a start. I wondered whether I could try to love my president as Jesus or Dr. King would, without having to want to have him over for lunch. But if you refused even to entertain the idea of eating lunch with the person in the distant future, would Jesus consider that you had really forgiven him? Jesus ate with sinners. Still, I know he would eat with my president. Even if he knew that the White House would probably call the police or the Justice Department on him later for his radical positions, he'd do it because he is available to everyone. His love and mercy fall equally upon us all. This is so deeply not me. I know the world is loved by God, as are all of its people, but it is much easier to believe that God hates or disapproves or punishes the same people I do, because these thoughts are what is going on inside me much of the time. Beloveds, it's been stressful. 2020 has been surreal and yet very real. And 2021 is looking a little iffy at the beginning. But we are a people of faith. We may have different ways of believing or feeling that faith, but we all know that we can come together and share that. Share what our beliefs and our joys are and our fears. We can imagine a path, many, many paths to be together. If you have a moment or if you have a window available, please look out of it now and breathe in. If you don't have a window available to look out of, maybe close your eyes. I invite you to, shut your eyes and imagine looking out a window. And look out and see the weather, and then picture the rest of us, the people that you have been going through and looking in the chat boxes in your Zoom. Imagine your friends and loved ones holding hands, being together again soon, sharing joys and sorrows in person. Breathe in, feel the love that surrounds you, and exhale the fear. Breathe in, knowing we are greater together, and exhale what does not serve you. Amen, and blessed be. And now, I invite us into our time of community connection, our time of sacred sharing. If you'd like to share a joy or concern, please raise your hand using the button in the participants window, and Don will unmute you, or you may see a pop-up window asking you to unmute yourself. If you prefer, you can share your joy or concern in the chat window by sending a chat to everyone, and then Don will read out aloud what you sent. When you do share, whether by voice or by chat, please tell us your name and where you live, and briefly let us know what is in your heart today. And I'll put a stone in our sacred waters on your behalf.
Beloveds, this is a prayer for our unraveling world, our divided nation, our divided families, our divided lives. This is a prayer for the pain of knowing what is right and yet being unable or unwilling to act. This is a prayer for all of those traumatized by this week's news as previous acts of public violence are reignited in the very cells of our bodies. This is a prayer for all of those whose fears are founded and rooted in the lynching, the detention, the deportation of their ancestors as they watch white supremacists take over our nation's capital. This is a prayer this morning for everyone who has lost a loved one to hate and violence, to all those whose families members whose own pain have, to all of those with family members whose own pain has been manipulated into misguided hate against innocent others. Spirit of life and of love, today I call upon you. I call upon the ancestors. I call upon the mystery of life beyond us, the energies of love. May we feel that presence in these most challenging times, by whatever name you may find to call upon. These times when hardship upon hardship descends upon us, when a pandemic keeps us separate and hateful public acts make us angry and fearful. Help us again to regain balance. May we be anchored in love and move forward together in the work of justice. Beloveds, we are tired. It has been a long and arduous year, a long and arduous 4 years. May we have the strength to reach out when we are in need, and may we have the strength to reach out to others. Whether they are those who are most frail or those who are most resilient, but nevertheless may feel alone in their struggle. May we reach out in love to those who are suffering from COVID, those fearful for family members, those who have lost loved ones to COVID or to any other illness in this time of physical separation, and all of those who are challenged by these times, economically, spiritually, mentally. Let's celebrate also with those on new adventures, with those just retiring and those setting off to foreign lands as soon as they are able, starting their professional lives, ready to bring justice and love to the world. Beloveds, in this time may we call on everything we have so we may be healers in a weary world. Blessed be. Amen.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice. One people, one voice. A song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. Today, our half of our plate will be shared again with the minister's discretionary fund. All people go through times of crisis and high needs in their lives. And every year, Reverend Lydia discreetly channels the congregation's love and care to our community members in need using this fund. Sometimes finances are the stressor, and sometimes it is simply difficult to give oneself the gift of self-care when the future feels so uncertain. Modest financial support from this fund have paid for memorial costs, massage and alternative therapies to members with challenging illnesses, car insurance, groceries. This year there have been larger and more frequent requests for things like therapy and recovery programs and rent and mortgage support from the economic impacts of the pandemic. Individuals are encouraged to contact Reverend Lydia when they become aware of a need, whether it's for a friend or themselves. It can be difficult to reach out for help, especially during the hardest of times. But through this fund, we can offer a helping hand and bring our compassion to life. I encourage you to be generous as the plate passes. This practice of generosity is one of the very concrete ways that we as a community care for one another and in turn are cared for. After you make your donation, feel free to answer this question in the chat. What feelings have arisen in you this week? the work of this fellowship, bringing love, reason, compassion, and justice to this world, and to the BVUUF Ministers Discretionary Fund, we dedicate our offerings.
And now we sing.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
A week ago, Reverend Julia McKay and I were planning our monthly play shop. And we shared some of the Aurora Levins Morales poem with the group. Then, a week ago, we decided to take out all the language about us and them and the parts about winning. That was a week ago. But after Wednesday, after seeing images of white supremacists defiling and ransacking our nation's capital with the paltry police response that accompanied it, after sitting with my BIPOC colleagues on Wednesday afternoon in the shock and the horror of this violent breach of democracy by white supremacists instigated by our own president, I'm in a different place today. On Wednesday, I was simultaneously not surprised, as many could see this coming, and stunned. And I'm still processing all that's coming up for me. I'm so grateful for all that you all put in the chat, because it allowed that mix for me to also show up again, to be processed and visible. Our UUA president, Susan Frederick Ray, has said, "This is no time for a casual faith. This is the time to root down, to gain support from one another and live our values out loud. Because the actions of those who hate are being lived out loud and violently. It is past time indeed, to take moral sides and side with love." It's been a long and too slow journey for me to awaken the warrior within me. And I'll share more about warriors in a little bit. I can remember back in 2015, planning a Black Lives Matter Standing on the Side of Love service on the Denver Capitol steps. And our UU musicians brought up a song for the service called "Which Side Are You On?" I immediately objected, not wanting to take sides. My musician colleagues gave me a history lesson on the Union origins of this song, while my Black colleagues, hurt and angry by what I had said, still graciously shared that they need people on their side in a white supremacist nation. That was my first lesson in white fragility, putting fears of my own feelings or reputation ahead of the ever-present, fear-inducing, harmful, violent, and deadly impact of unintentional and very intentional white supremacy culture on Black, Indigenous, people of color, and Latino, Latina, Latinx people. Nothing like the picture of a Confederate flag parading through the Capitol by a white supremacist to jolt me again into that awareness that there actually are sides. Nothing like the juxtaposition of how white supremacists who stormed the Capitol, ransacked offices, stole computers, and destroyed government property while police held out their hands to them, versus the tear gas and riot gear that was met by peaceful protesters this summer as they were publicly grieving yet another Black life taken at the hands of police. Nothing like these images for me to realize that I have to get off the sidelines and take a side. In an article for Religious News Service, Jackie Lewis, the senior minister of Middle Collegiate Church in Manhattan, shared this. She wrote, "I'm so damn tired of living in a country that treats Black grief as a threat and white rage as a sacrament." 4 years earlier, she recalls being among Black members of a Black-led protest where they were arrested in the same building. Our crime, she says, singing with the Bishop William Barber III, Rabbi Sharon Brose, and a gathering of multi-ethnic leaders to demand that the Senate not take away the Affordable Care Act. The Capitol Police were not opening up barriers for us, she writes. They did not gently point the way for us. We were Black, and though our protest was appropriate, we were in danger by putting it on display. Earlier, when a Black-led group of leaders staged a die-in on the floor of the cafeteria in the building, we got up at the third warning because the police meant business and we were afraid. I am disturbed about the insurrection on January 6th, she writes, and all the circumstances that led up to it. Like Larry wrote in his chat, she said, I disagree with President-elect Biden's claim that this is not America. In fact, it is precisely who we are and who we have always been. White rage is privileged over Black grief. White rage, she says, is as American as apple pie. Black grief, she says, is generational, incarnate in our bodies. When Black grief dares to mourn publicly, dares to speak the truth of the permanence and pernicious nature of the white entitlement that formed our nation on stolen land and built it with a brutal system of chattel slavery, that grief is met with disdain. When Black grief shows up in the office and dares to speak up, demand the abolishing of ceilings, white backlash and white rage interpret that grief as too angry. Black grief, which of course is angry, is shut down, cut off. So the grief festers, rots, and depresses and kills the soul of Black folks. When Black grief protests, marches in the streets, die-ins on the national floor, it is snatched from the ground, put in handcuffs, thrown in a cell, beaten like Fannie Lou Hamer and John Lewis, shot like Medgar Evers and Martin King. Still, Black grief is prophetic, she writes. And as people of faith and moral courage, we must accept our leadership role and join together in prophetic grief and divine outrage to critique our racist culture in which being Black is a pre-existing condition for poverty, discrimination, and early death. Anti-Black racism, she writes, is a festering sore, a putrid hole in the soul of America that will only heal with moral courage and voracious intention. Now, as I was thinking about it, and about this siding and the intensity that I'm feeling and the energy that I am needing so that I don't take my faith as a casual faith, the Tibetan legend of the Shambhala warriors, as told to me by Buddhist activist Joanna Macy, came to mind. Joanna first learned of this prophecy of the coming of the Shambhala warriors in 1980 from Tibetan friends in India, but it is apparently 12 centuries old. They were coming to believe, the Tibetans in the 80s, that this was the time for this prophecy. Shambhala warriors see the potential for mass destruction. They can see it, they're prophets, and they see that another world is possible. But you cannot recognize a Shambhala warrior from sight, for there's no uniform, no insignia, no banners. Shambhala warriors know that the forces of destruction in the world are manomaya, mind-made. Hate, greed, violence come from within our beings. They are cultivated, and therefore they can be dismantled. According to the prophecy, Shambhala warriors train in two weapons, compassion and insight, and both are needed. We need compassion because it provides us the fuel to move us to act on behalf of other beings. But it itself, by itself, can burn us out. We know what compassion fatigue is this year for sure. So we also need the second as well, insight. And the insight that Joanna Macy, that the Shambhala prophecy is talking about is the Buddhist concept of dependent co-arising of all beings. What that lets us see, or what that tells us, is that the battle that we're talking is not between good people and bad people. That's not what's happening here. It's between the good and evil that is within every human heart. Did you hear the story about one of the women who died and how she had been an Obama, she had been a, I'm going to get political here. She'd been an Obama follower and then slowly moved into the world of QAnon. And it took her life. Both of those were in her heart. Once we realize that we are interconnected as in a web, and that each act of pure motivation affects the entire web, that brings consequences that we can't see or measure. Each step we take towards compassion, and each time we have that insight that all of it lives within us and we need to cultivate the best within ourselves, then we can move as warriors in this world. Insight alone is too cool. It won't keep us going. Compassion alone, according to the Shambhala prophecy, is too hot. But we open ourselves to the world's pain. We add, for me, also the fuel of the anger that I feel and turn that towards action. Bernice King, the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., wrote, "We have yet to address America's violent roots, its white supremacy, or its racism. With urgency, we must. If we do not, violence in many forms will persist, no matter who is in office. Let us act with urgency, calling up that love warrior Shambhala energy, bringing a new world into existence. That work needs to be inner work and outer work. You may not be the one to show up in Denver at a counter protest of the Proud Boys, as our colleague Reverend Ruth Reinhardt did on Wednesday. You may not be the one to stand on the corner of Highway 287 and Baseline with your Black Lives Matter sign on Saturday mornings. But you could be the one to bring cookies to the people standing out on the corner with their signs. You may never attend any rally, but you could show up at the Martin Luther King Day activities on Zoom, and you could sign petitions from your home. You can get involved in our social justice and racial justice activities, especially those that take their lead from the communities most impacted by injustice. You can join together with other fellowship members and learn more at our next Inclusivity Anti-Racism workshop, or attend the trainings on affordable housing to better understand the link between economic and racial injustices. There are so many ways to bring this warrior-like compassion and insight into the world. Now is the time. We are past time to root down, gather up the energy, and live our values out loud. The world depends on us. Let us have the strength to do what is needed. Blessed be. Amen.
Do you ever wonder, is there something you can do to make this world a sacred space and live in truth? If you watch the birds, if you watch the bees, when you feel the sun, well, when you feel the breeze, you'll see they know what they're doing. You'll see, oh, 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 what about you? What about you? What about you? What about you? Can you feel what you're doing? Can you be what you're giving? Step completely as a warrior of love. Walk with dignity, fight for love. Step completely as a warrior of love. Walk with dignity, fight for love. Now I know times can get real hard. Are you willing to stand apart from the mess that we have made? It's up to you. What will you create? When you keep the faith, take the time to pray. Spirit in your hand, then you will understand. You better step completely as a warrior of love. Walk with dignity, fight for love. Step completely as a warrior of love. Walk with dignity, fight for love. Step is calling all warriors with dignity, fight for love. The earth is calling all warriors with dignity, fight for love. I don't know how to love when all I see is hate, and I don't know where to go. I feel so alone. I don't know how to love when all I see is hate. Do it anyway. Where to go? I feel so alone. Love anyway. I don't know how to love when all I see is hate. Do it anyway. Where to go? I feel so alone. Love anyway. When all I see is hate, do it anyway. Where to go? I feel so alone. Step completely as a warrior of love. Walk with dignity, fight for love. Step completely as a warrior of love. Walk with dignity, fight for love.
Let's extinguish our chalices together, and say our words. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Let us go forth, being warriors for love, strengthened by each other, rooted in our faith, and full of compassion as well as intention. Ready to speak our values out loud. Ready to bring the world we know can be into existence. Beloveds, these are weary times. May we take comfort in one another and find strength to do what must be done. Blessed be. Amen.